Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me for BizTalk 33. My name is Wally Rowder. I'm an Australian. I have been an academic and a consultant to government and companies for some 38 years. My background is I'm a fellow lecturer at government and private institutions, universities, and colleges globally. I have been Executive Vice President, Senior Vice President, as well as Vice President of Strategic Marketing, Business Continuity Management, Business Redevelopment, as well as all disciplines of human resources. Thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to tonight talk about a basic element that is required for any successful business or business person. It's even required by individuals in life, whether they're employed or unemployed, and that is effective problem solving. Before I do start tonight's session, I do ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure that your name is correctly placed on your picture, exactly the same it is on your passport or identification card. If your name has any irrelevant parts, if your name has your phone's name or any remarks in it, we will not issue a certificate. Your name must be exactly as it appears on your passport or identification card, or you will receive no certificate. Also, your video cameras must be switched on for the duration of this session tonight, and you must remain in the session until the session ends. Should you leave the session early for any reason, you stand a chance of not receiving the certificate. So thank you, and I look forward to discussing issues about problem solving with you tonight. Let's start by talking about what is problem solving. And I guess that's the most important question tonight. What is problem solving? Well, guys, problem solving is a really basic, simple tool once you understand it. There's a common way of problem solving, which most of you do now. You look at the problem, you say it's too hard, and you ignore it, and nothing ever gets fixed. Or there's a process of problem solving, which some of you think you know, and some of you definitely don't know. Problem solving is the act of defining a problem or understanding the gist of the problem, finding out what the root cause of the problem is, trying to identify the reasons for these causes, whatever they are, putting them in a list of 1 to 10, depending on how urgent each element is, and trying to work around alternatives to try to resolve the issues at hand. If you try to deal with a problem without knowing the root cause, unfortunately, you will never solve the problem. You will only wash it aside and it will come back. There's 7 steps of effective problem solving that most of you know, you probably learned at secondary school. And after I finish tonight, I'm going to build on these dramatically, because the next slide, I'm going to take you through what we call critical thinking brought into problem solving. The first step that you commonly know is to identify. What do I mean by identify? Is to actually put down on paper clearly what the problem is that you're facing. Be very specific about being honest with yourself and documenting the problem. You need to, second part is understand. You need to understand what is the problem doing, what is the result of the problem, and who are the likely causes of the problem. Or what are the likely causes of the problem on the surface? You need to list all the possible solutions that you and your team think could solve the problem, even though you don't even have deep down know the root cause of the problem. You need to list what you think the possible solutions are. You then need to go and look at the root cause. You need to start getting to the root cause of the problem before you can evaluate your options. As you dig deeper into the root cause, you then come to selecting an option or options. Then you need to, in some way, means or mode, document all the root causes, all the outcomes, all the effects they're going to have on each part of the business or you as an individual, and then narrow it down to one possible solution that everybody can follow. And also, you need to get agreement from all the people involved in the process in order for it to happen. So these are the basic 7 steps that most of you have learned at secondary school on how to solve a problem. But unfortunately, in today's world, in today's business, just relying on the 7 definitions of identify, understand, list, evaluate, select, document, and agree on is not enough. Because most of you don't know what tools to use in order to be able to answer these 7 elements correctly. For example, a simple problem, Dawa, one more. I'm going to give you a simple problem. We all know when babies are born, the first thing they do is they lay on their stomach or they lay on their back. And the first thing the baby does is they try to roll over. And then eventually they figure out that they can roll over. But then they see us walking and standing up. So what does the baby start doing then? They can't walk or stand up yet, but what they do is they try to crawl. They crawl, and eventually, after they crawl, they start standing up, they latch onto a table or something and stand up, and they fall down. And babies are trying to find out why they keep falling down. It's simply because they can't balance themselves. Then they stand up and try to walk, and they walk slowly, they fall, they get scared, then they try again. Eventually, they start running. Now, through each of those processes, the poor baby's asking themselves, what am I doing wrong? Why is mommy walking? Why is she standing up? Why can't I? But babies solve the problem in their own head very simply, because they figure out that if today I'm crawling and I reach a table, I can hold on to it and stand up. And eventually, if I practice enough, I can stand up on my own. That's a simple problem of the baby going from crawling to walking. Very simple problem. Now, if the baby can solve that simple problem, because the problem is very simple, there's no root cause. The only cause of the baby not being able to walk so early is because he doesn't know how to walk. Right or wrong, Dawa? Because the baby needs to learn to walk, right? But for our problems or your problems in life or business, they're not so simple. Because for every problem you have in business or life, there is a root cause. The baby's problem, the root cause is very simple. They don't know how to walk. It takes them time to learn. Right or wrong? Let me go to a more complex problem. If I go to wash white shirts, and together with the white shirts, I put a black t-shirt and blue denim jeans, and I put them in the washing machine, and my white shirt comes out light blue because the blue on my denim jeans ran, then the root cause is simple, that I shouldn't be washing blue jeans with a white shirt because the colors run. Correct? I identified the root cause. Okay, the other root cause could be that I used hot water, which made the color run. The other root cause could be the soap that I put in the washing machine made the color run. The other root cause could be that the jeans have a warning, do not wash in hot water, and I broke that rule, so the color ran. All of these are root causes that some of us overlook, and they're very simple. But unfortunately, because some of us think we know the problem, we know the solution, okay, we don't look at what the real cause is. And that's a very simple problem that many people face as they get older. When the baby first learns how to walk, okay, when he first learns how to walk, he's at a level of competence that he doesn't know how to walk, all right? So he's still learning how to walk. But when he gets better at walking, what happens? He starts running, okay? So at first, his level of confidence is very low at walking. But then when he gets very confident, he walks faster. So what happens with us as adults sometimes, we think we know the root cause because we think our level of confidence as adults is very high. I know the business, I know the cause. But in reality, we've reached a stage of confidence where we're overconfident and we're not asking the right questions to find the right root cause, okay? So if we become overconfident, we stop asking the right questions. And if we're underconfident, we lack the ability to carry out the task. Do we all understand that, everyone? Yes or no? Okay, all right. In order to practice problem solving today, or in order for problem solving today to work for you, we need to look at the way we think. We need to go from just analytical thinking to creative thinking. Okay, in analytical thinking, we're usually convergent. We usually think inwards. We usually very analytical based on what we know. We always use probability. We always follow a set sequence. We try to be logical. We try to be rational. We try to be focused. We try to be objective. We try to come up with one single answer, and we only think with the left brain. That's because basically we're overconfident. We get to a level of competence where we think we know everything. So we think that the best way is the analytical way. If we go to the other side of thinking, we have the creative method of thinking, where instead of it being convergent, it's divergent, it's open. Instead of thinking inward, we think outward. Instead of being analytical, we're more generative and look at all the possibilities. Instead of looking at the probabilities, we look at the possibilities. We don't just look at the sequence we know, but we be imaginative and look at all the possible sequences that are causing the problem. We don't just follow the logic that we believe is logical, but we need to put intuitivity into it and be intuitive and ask more questions. We need to be emotional sometimes and say to ourselves, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, rather than just being rational and ignoring emotion. We need to be focused, but on the other side, we need to diffuse the problem and try to find the real cause of the problem. We need to be subjective as well as being objective. We need to be subjective, and we need to find the many possible answers rather than one answer. So we need to use the right brain as well. Because, ladies and gentlemen, what are critical thinking skills? Critical thinking skills mean thinking creatively. And that means the ability to think clearly and rationally, understanding the logical connection between ideas, the ability to engage in reflective and independent thinking, questions, ideas, and assumptions, identify, analyze, solve problems systematically. So if we go through that, okay, if we go through that, you can say that the beginning of the process might be analytical, but at the end of the day, for you to be able to solve the problem and get to the very bottom of it, we need to involve creative thinking. Critical thinking. Why critical thinking is important in problem solving. Problem solving requires observation, it requires research, it requires analysis. You need to think of and interpret what the analysis means. You need to reflect on past experience or what others are doing to see what could be causing the mistake. You need to look at all the inferences, whether it could be the weather, the temperature, etc., etc., etc. And you need to be specific. You need to be specific in the fact that you need to look at all the possibilities. You cannot limit the possibilities to simply what you know. You have to think outside what you know. You have to open the mind and look at, hold on, I've always done it this way. Maybe I can explore the other factors that have caused that. You need to be able to think about a topic or an issue in an objective and critical way rather than a subjective way. So instead of thinking it subjectively, you need to think of it objectively. You need to think of it outwardly. Okay? You need to identify the different arguments there are in a relation or with relation or that are relevant. to what the area or the problem you're looking at. So the different arguments could be, we failed. It could be that the supplier gave us the wrong product. It could be that the doctor prescribed the medicine, the nurse gave the wrong medicine to the patient. You need to be open-minded. You need to look at all the possibilities. You need to evaluate every point of view to determine how strong or how real it is as the cause of the problem or what role it plays in the problem. You need to recognize any weaknesses. You cannot hide away from the truth. Something's gone wrong based on a decision that you or your organization has made. You need to be able to put all the errors on the table and look at them openly. Remember, we said, don't just rely on analytical or probable or sequential. Look at being outward, be generative, look at all the possibilities, not just the probabilities. Look at the intuitive as well as the subjective, not only the objective. All right. So if you look at only the objective, then you're limiting your span of root analysis, or you're limiting the possibilities of really getting to the bottom of the problem, because the cause might be nothing objective. It could be something subjective caused by a very specific area that you're doing wrong. But if you only look at it objectively, you might not highlight that. You need to be subjective as well. You need to be objective first, and then you need to zero in subjectively. All right, you need to understand, or you need to be able to explore what are the implications there might be behind any of the reasons you give or any of the root causes or the problems you cause. What are the implications? So if you identify that they use the wrong temperature water, if you identify that they put the price up too high and that's why you couldn't sell the product, you need to look at all the possible implications had they not done that. And if they had not done that, what could have happened and what was the root cause of this happening? You need to be able to document structured reasoning and support for any argument you wish to make as the reason for the problem or how you're going to fix it. That's part of critical thinking. So what makes a good or a well-cultivated all-round critical thinker? A critical thinker who is able to solve problems productively, is able to ask questions, okay, able to ask critical questions, deep questions, and he's able to focus in by being able to identify problems and clearly document the problem. How does he document the problem clearly and precisely? By asking questions. A critical thinker gathers the information using abstract ideas to interpret it effectively. He doesn't use just what we said. He doesn't just use analytical processes. He also uses abstract processes, abstract ideas, where he says, if this was the case, why? If it wasn't this, what was it? So he asks the if questions. He goes into the abstract and tries to get to the very root cause of the issue. A critical thinker will dig deep and keep digging deep till he comes up with a well-reasoned conclusion. He would test his conclusions and ask himself more questions to test whether they're relevant. He may even have to come up with abstracts and say, well, okay, if this is the cause, then what would have been the outcome? And if we didn't do this, what could have been the result? And would that have caused the same problem? He needs to go that far. A creative thinker thinks open-mindedly within alternative systems of thought, recognizing and assessing as much as he needs to. He can be as open-minded and as abstract as needed. He needs to think of all the possible assumptions, all the possible implications, and all the possible practical and impractical consequences. You need to be very, very open-minded in order to show that you've become a critical thinker. You need to communicate effectively with others in figuring out solutions and problems. What is communication? Communication, ladies and gentlemen, is not just hearing people. Communication is listening to people. Let me ask someone here, what is the difference between hearing and listening? Can anybody here tell me? What is the difference between hearing and listening? Who can tell me? What is the difference between hearing and listening? Who can I ask tonight? Okay, who wants to answer my question? Can somebody answer? Irene, can you answer my question? Okay, let me talk. Oops, what's happening here? All right, one moment, please. Okay, Irene, can you unmute your microphone and answer my question? Hello, Irene. Irene Ruellen, how are you? Good evening, Irene.
Yeah, hello, sir. Good evening.
Hi, Irene. Can you tell me what's the difference between hearing and listening?
As for me, the difference for that one is for listening, you can listen to this same way of communication, like
Okay,
how
so give me a clear difference between hearing and listening. Can you give me a clear definition?
so
Yes, go on. Are you there, Irene? I'm listening. Are you there, Irene? Okay, all right, I'll come back to you, Irene. I think you're having problems with your microphone. I'll come back to you. Thank you. All right, let me go to someone else. Rosita, hello, Rosita. Would you like to unmute your microphone?
Yes, sir. Hi.
Hi, Rosita. How are you tonight?
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Rosita, what is the difference between hearing and listening?
I guess one can hear conversation without really listening to it. Like you can hear noises. You can hear people talking, but not actually listening to it. So
go on.
That's how I think about it. And
all right, good.
Without the full understanding, because you are hearing it, but not listening. So you can just hear it, but not actually thinking or listening, having the focus of listening to it.
Exactly right. Let me just clarify. Hearing is to hear something without understanding the fact. Yes. Listening is when you take in information, you analyze the information, you ask more questions, you analyze or you probe, you reflect on the answers you've got, and you ask more questions until you get clear understanding. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So do you think that listening is important in being a creative thinker?
It is very important.
Thank you. Can you tell me what are the dangers if we hear but don't listen when we're trying to solve a problem?
The dangers of it is actually maybe you will come up with a wrong idea of something, of an issue, because you're not really listening. So
great. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Let me give you all a common example. As you know, when you go into hospital, doctor comes around and prescribes medicine, and he will tell the nurse what he wants. And he will also go away and write in the chart what he prescribed. Sometimes the doctor will say to the nurse that she needs to give it to the patient urgently. Now, if the doctor doesn't communicate properly and the nurse only hears and doesn't listen, the danger is that the nurse could either give the wrong medication, overdose the patient, or underdose the patient. That's one possibility by the nurse hearing and not listening. That's why in hospitals now, the nurse cannot administer the medication until such time as the doctor puts it into the system and she reads it exactly as it used to be in the system. Because if she just relies on what she heard or listened, the chances are she could she could dispense the wrong medication and a patient could die. So now when you go into hospitals, the doctor has to order the medication in the system. The nurse cannot inject the patient or give them the medication until such time that she has it in black and white. And that was because nurses a lot of the times were hearing and not listening. Thank you, Irene. Thank you. All right, so listening is when information comes in, you analyze what's coming in, you ask questions, you probe the answer, you reflect on the answer, you ask more questions until you're able to fully understand the topic being discussed. However, if you want to hear, hearing would be when husband comes home, wife nags that she needs more money to buy a Louis Vuitton handbag, husband ignores and just says yes, yes, yes. That's hearing, but he's not listening, because at the end of the day, he doesn't want to say yes to more money. So there's a difference between hearing and listening. Okay, does anybody have any questions about hearing and listening? Would you like to put up your hands if anybody has any questions? Hearing and listening, please don't put up your hand unless you have a real question. Does anybody have any questions about hearing or listening? Okay, Nelson, Caesar, Amaral, do you have any questions? Hello, Nelson. Do you want to unmute your microphone, Nelson? Hi, Nelson. Do you want to unmute your microphone, mate? No? Okay, I'll come back. Yeah, hi, Nelson. What's your question?
I would like to clarify about the difference between hearing and listening.
All right. Well, as I said, Nelson, hearing is when information goes in one ear and out the other. That means when you don't analyze it, and can you put your camera back on, please, Nelson?
Okay.
Please keep your camera on. If it gets switched off, you will not get a certificate.
Okay.
The difference between hearing and listening is hearing information goes in one ear and out the other. It means you do not process the information because you don't care. Listening is when information comes in, you analyze it. Please switch on your camera. You analyze the information. Probe the information by asking more questions, and again, probe the answer and ask more questions in order to get clear verbal understanding of what is being discussed. However, if somebody talks and you do not ask questions, you're actually hearing, not listening. Again, I ask you to switch on your camera, please. All right. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Nick, thank you. Please switch on your camera or else you won't get a certificate. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go on. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, I'll come back to you guys. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Just one moment, please. Okay, so we've spoken about, just one moment, please. This is protruding. Okay, so we've spoken about communicating effectively. So we just agreed amongst you all that communicating effectively means listening to the information being given to us, analyzing that information coming in, asking more questions to clarify, reflecting on the information we're receiving, asking more questions to clarify anything that we couldn't reflect as correct, and then coming to an agreement or a consensus on the information we're being given. Communication is when two parties communicate to understand something. Communication is not when one person talks and the other person listens. Communication is where there is a statement made, questions asked, answers given, more questions asked. That is communication. That is effective communication. And that is the sort of communication you need in order to figure out solutions to problems, as well as comply with the rules of critical thinking and be a successful problem solver. Because if you're not a critical thinker, you cannot be a successful problem solver.
Mm.
Let's look at a case study. Does everybody here know Ninja Van delivery? Everybody know
Yes.
Ninja Van? There's Ninja Van in your country, right? There's Ninja Van in the Philippines. There's Ninja Van in every country in the world. Recently, it was reported that a former Ninja Van delivery driver got sent to jail for pocketing parcels or stealing parcels worth 34,000 Singapore dollars. Now, let me ask you, does anybody here know what could have been the problems that caused the driver to steal so many parcels before anybody caught him? Can anybody help me and tell me what could have been the problems? Who wants to share some ideas with me? Come on, shake your heads. That's it. Scratch your head, Irene. What could have been the problems that Ninja forgot to examine to allow this driver to steal 34,000? Who can tell me some of the reasons? Come on, you need to think, guys. This is, you need to think and start behaving as students and people who want to get promoted in their job. I can't give you all the answers. What do you think some of the problems were in Ninja Van's processes? Let's talk to Mr. Jesus Botero. Okay, Jesus, nice to see you again. Thank you for putting up your hand, mate. Open your microphone, Jesus. Hi, mate.
Thank you.
Tell
Thank
me,
you.
what do you think some of the problems were that Ninja may have overlooked before they caught this person that allowed him to steal $34,000 worth of parcels? Go ahead.
All right. So first reason is with the company, the poor training and compensation, or like the salary thing, and I forget the term. I'm sorry.
Now, I want to know what the problems were that they may have overlooked in tracking him from stealing. I'm not talking about the cause after of compensation. What do you think internal problems they had that didn't allow them to pick up that he was stealing parcels earlier? Can you give me an example?
So in that case, the records.
Okay,
Or,
another one?
yeah, and what do you call this in business? I forget actually the term. It was on my tongue, but I suddenly forgot. I'm
Just
sorry.
give me an example.
So inventory, for example, the company usually do inventory after like deliveries and something. So sometimes like the records that they keep, they just ignore it and don't check on it time to time, which is
Okay.
necessary.
Or it could be that when he went to the warehouse, no one was observing whether he scanned all the items, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so basically he was taking them from the warehouse to his truck, but he was not recording that he actually took the parcel into his truck. That could have been a problem. The other problem is that somewhere along the line, somebody was manipulating data. After he picked it up, they were clearing the data. Another one. The other problem is that he could have been keeping it, and then he could have been accusing the people he delivered it to of saying, I left it at your front door and you didn't receive it, right? So that could have been another problem. These are just problems. But at the end of the day, had Ninja Van had the right security protocols in place, he would not have stolen $34,000 worth of parcels. Would you agree with that?
Exactly,
So what
yes.
I'm asking you, Jesus, if you were the managing director of Ninja and suddenly you had discovered that he had stolen $34,000 of equipment, what would be your process of critical thinking to identify the problem? Who would you bring together? You'd bring your warehouse manager together, the people who are at the loading bay where people collect parcels, right? You'd bring your IT people in. You'd look at the scanning system you have, correct?
Security.
And then you'd probably send someone to follow this driver around secretly for 1 or 2 days, correct? So all of these are things that you need to do before you can actually accuse the driver of stealing, right?
Exactly.
So can I ask you, in order to do that, Jesus, do you want to use a closed-minded analytical process, or do you think you need to use the analytical process plus the creative process to examine all the options? How many different types of processes would you use? Would you only go down the analytical road, or would you also go down the creative questioning road or the critical path? Where would you go?
So I'll take both creative and analytical way
Right?
to know
Because what
exactly
you're trying to do, Jesus, is you need to think out of the box. Because if you only think inside the box analytically and say, but we have all the processes in place, that means you're not being imaginative up to find out or to think of how this criminal could have broken your system, right? Because
Exactly.
usually criminals do not do things that you look for. They do things that you hope that they hope you never look for, right? So if you only look at the common areas, you're never going to find the reason, are you? Would you agree with me?
Exactly, yes.
All right. So when you go to the doctor and the doctor examines you, he would ask you questions and try to find out what's wrong with you, right?
Yes.
But if you don't ask the questions deep enough as a doctor and you give Jesus the wrong medication and something happens to him, what is the cause? It's because the doctor didn't ask the right questions, right?
Exactly. That's true.
So tell me, if you were the CEO at Ninja, what questions would you have been asking your IT department? Give me some examples.
Okay, for the IT department, I would ask them regarding like
Any ideas? Go ahead.
like surveillance camera, who managed
Okay.
the.
You would ask them if the surveillance cameras were switched on. Okay,
Yes.
that's good. Okay, Jesus, thank you for your contribution. I'll come back to you. All right, let's go to someone else. Peter Conte, would you like to put your microphone on and tell me what would you do if you were the general manager at Ninja? Go ahead, sir. Are you there, Peter? I can't hear you, Peter. Your microphone is not working again.
In
Hi,
the
Peter.
first place, yes.
Good to see you. Good evening, sir. Tell me, Peter, if you were the GM at Ninja and you were trying to get to the root cause of this problem, what questions would you be asking as managing director? Can you hear me, Peter? I'm sorry, Peter, I can't hear you.
Okay, in the first three,
Phone. I'll come back to you shortly, mate. Thank you. Can you hear me, Peter?
I mean,
I can't hear
yes,
you, Peter.
yeah.
I think you need to buy a new wire microphone. Your wire is not working, bro. I'll come back to you, Peter. Okay, let's go to another person. Maravik Bonete, good evening. Could you unmute your microphone? Hi, Maravik, how are you?
Evening, Coach. How are you?
Tell me,
Everything.
Maravik, what questions would you ask as the managing director to identify the cause of the problem at Ninja? Go ahead.
Actually, Coach, for me, what I should do is I will call all the department in charge.
Yes, go
call,
ahead.
Yeah, I will call the department in charge. What is the root of the problem? What is the cost of the problem? And then who is the one who's handling that person? Which department?
Go ahead.
And then I will start the investigation.
Okay,
And
but let me just ask you, in the process, would you ask people just to think analytically of what they know, or would you ask them to think of all the possible options? What would your instruction be to them?
no, all the possible options, sir. First thing, of course, background of that person.
Right.
Back.
Okay. So are you going to ask them just to give you their subjective opinion, or are you going to ask them to give you all the possible subjective and objective opinions? What are you going to ask for?
As all the positive, subjective, and objective opinions, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Oh.
Maravik. Great. Go ahead. Anything else?
And after that, sir, I will add also I will add in that background check for that person. Maybe he has a history having this.
But before you do that, you want to make sure you identify the root cause and prove that that was the root cause. And then you have to put security elements in place to stop it from happening again, right? Because
yes,
the fact that the publicity goes out into the media that Ninja driver stole $34,000, not only do you have to compensate your customers or the suppliers, but you also have to fix the negative reputation that's caused the company, right? Because what is the root cause? The root cause, you had a criminal driver who stole because your company lacked security protocols. But how do you have to get the confidence of your customers back so they ship with you? So really, the root cause is not only the driver was a criminal, it's not only that you failed all the security measures required, but it goes deeper than that. How did this story leak to the media? And what allowed this story to get to the media? Who leaked it? Was it a member of staff? How did the newspapers find out about it? Do you understand what I'm saying, Maravik? So you
Yes,
need to think on a wider scale.
I call it four walls. It's between.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maravik. Good stuff. Okay, let's go on, ladies and gentlemen. I have another person here. No? Okay, we'll come back to you. Let me go back to the presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're saying here, excuse me, one moment, please. Okay, just give me a minute, will you? So what we're saying is, in order for us to identify as management the root cause of how a driver got away with $34,000, okay, remember, $34,000 wasn't overnight. They only discovered it in October 2019, but this driver had been doing it for like 3 or 4 months. And suddenly the newspapers heard about it. So we need to ask ourselves, when this van pulls up at the loading bay, what is happening when the goods go into his car? Is somebody cheating the system? Is he the only person doing it? Is there people in the warehouse involved? So after the goods are stolen, does he actually go and sell them or split the money? Where does he store the goods? In actual fact, when the police looked into this, they found that most of the items he had stolen were expensive electronic items which are high value that they were delivering, so he could sell them easily on the black market. So eventually, after Ninja was able to identify, and after they used people following him around for 2 or 3 days, they checked all the electronic surveillance equipment, they checked all the messages that customers had sent him through their system, through their parcel delivery and tracking system. Only after that, only after looking at it subjectively and objectively and intuitively, they were able to come up with a very, very comprehensive list of what were the issues, what were the causes, collect evidence, and then call in the police. Let's go on. So, the first element of critical thinking, before we look at what is required to get the answers, we need to practice what we call active listening. And that means active listening is a way of listening and responding to another person that improves the mutual understanding. It is an important first step in order to simplify the situation and identify the solution. So what is active listening? Again, please write it down. Active listening is information comes in, you analyze, you ask questions, you reflect on the answers, you ask more questions, you analyze, and you come to consensus with the person you're talking to. Does everybody understand that? Please write it down. The lesson gives students the opportunity to identify what active listening is and why is it important in managing conflicts. It's not only important in managing conflicts, ladies and gentlemen, listening is important in managing issues related to problem solving. What is active listening? Let's go through it step by step. Active listening starts at where? It starts right at the beginning. Okay, let me just get this out of the way. Listening may be enough to be tempted to fix the problem, but at times students just want us to listen. You need to evaluate the conversation. All right, that is at the end. So let's go by the beginning. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Listening may be enough. All right, listening may be enough. But if we go all the way around the circle, you have to evaluate the conversation. You should not give advice too quickly. You should avoid giving judgment. You should show sympathy and listen to what they have to say. You should watch their body language. You should ask questions and you should paraphrase. You should try to ask questions and reflect by using examples to get clear understanding of what they're trying to say. All right? Listening will only work, or you will only be able to ask questions and paraphrase if you avoid making quick judgments and ask questions to clarify. Don't always agree to something unless you ask questions. These are 8 critical steps in active listening. 8 critical steps in active listening. Please write them down. Evaluate the conversation. Don't give advice too quickly. Avoid reaching judgment. Show sympathy. Show positive body language. Ask questions. Reflect and paraphrase. Ask more questions. Reach consensus. What is active questioning? We've looked at active listening, but let's talk about active questioning. Because if we actively listen, we need to actively question in order to reach consensus. Active questioning is basically a result of active listening. And it can be very powerful in getting the right answers and pointing you in the right direction towards solving a problem or getting to the root cause of a problem. The main effect is that a well-placed question draws the brain's attention to focus on the subject of the question. I'm going to give you some examples. Let me stop that. Okay, let's talk about question techniques. When we're trying to get the cause of a problem, should we ask open-ended questions or close-ended questions?
Open.
A close-ended question will come back with an answer. Are you black or white? The answer will be either black or white, closed-ended. Are you a male or female? Male, closed-ended. Are you hungry? Yes or no, closed-ended. Do we need to ask more closed-ended questions or open-ended questions? Open-ended questions may be, is our CCTV camera system working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And how many cameras do we have focused at the door of the warehouse? Do we need more cameras? That is an open-ended question that is going to get you a more detailed answer for you to be able to analyze the root cause of the problem. So when we're going through a problem-solving process, we should be asking more open-ended questions and less closed-ended questions. Because if you ask closed-ended questions, you will not be able to get to the root cause of the problem. Does everybody understand the difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions?
Yes.
Yes? Can you wave your hands if you understand? Thank you. Rochelle, do you understand, Rochelle? Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So let's go back to the presentation. Just one moment, please. So active questioning requires open-ended questions and not so many closed-ended questions, because the more open-ended questions you ask, the more interest you're going to generate from your brain to focus on the subject at question. If your brain only gets closed-ended questions like yes or no, it doesn't pick up certain information that it needs to push for another question. So always open-ended questions. That's part of being active and active questioning. What are the basic thinking questions that you should be asking? What is the issue? What do we have in place? Who observes or controls this? Where is it or where is it controlled? When does it work? And for how many hours? How does it work? How does it fall short of what we want? And why is that so? All of these are basically open-ended questions. Please write these down. What, who, where, when, how, and why. So what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is we're trying to find out the symptoms of the problem which are on the surface. What are the symptoms for Ninja Van? Parcels are going missing. They've had several reports that the customers did not receive their parcels, and they have identified that all these parcels went out with the same driver. They dig deeper by asking active questions and listening actively, and they come up with the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is where their security failed and how the driver was able to not deliver the parcels, and it took them some 3 to 6 months to find out. Does everybody understand that, Peter? Can you wave your hand if you can hear me, Peter? Peter Conte, can you hear me, mate? Good on you. All right, so identifying the symptoms is only the surface. The root cause is when you dig deeper and use critical thinking, active listening, and active questioning to get to the root. One of the tools that people use today in the 22nd century in identifying the root cause of the problem is a diagram that we all use as professionals called Ishikawa's Fishbone diagram. Ishikawa's diagram is used to show the causal factors that go into some final outcome, often related to production or design problem. And this diagram usually looks like a fish, and I'll show it to you shortly, because what it does is it brings all the problems together. And let me show you some of these diagrams. Let's look at this. This is a problem that is trying to be solved. And this problem is hydrogen-induced cracking in low temperature pressure vessel. So what is the first thing they look at? First thing is they look at the materials they're using. Second, they look at the methods they're using and the machines and the equipment they're using. Then they look at the people that are involved. And once they looked at the people, they look at the environment in which these hydrogen chemicals are being used. What is the environment? Is it the right temperature? Is it the right pressure? And they look at the measurements that are being used. Are the specs correct? So this is a simple bone, Ishikawa bone. As you could see, it looks like a fish. And what they do is they put this on paper and answer all the questions. How do they get the answers to this? It's by actively questioning the people on the team, not by just hearing them. It's by calling them together, asking active questions and listening and getting down to the very nitty-gritties of each question and answer. Let's look at another one. Okay, this problem is over a project called 59th Street Bridge. So what they're happening here is they wanted to design or ensure that the bridge went up on time. But their problem was too many missed deadlines. That means the timeline they had to put up the bridge and complete the bridge was not on time. The project was falling behind. So they started by asking cause. They looked at their team first. They looked at the team's training, motivation, and pay. Could that be an issue? They looked at the materials. Could the cause be because the vendors or the suppliers are not supplying materials? Could it be the poor quality, or could it be the delay in following through to get the right materials? Then they came down to the bottom. They asked themselves, is it possible that the method they're using is wrong? And then they looked at the equipment. So they looked first at the cause, being the team or the materials, and then they looked at the method. Could it be the method they're using, or could it be the equipment they're using? And for each of those, they drew the lines onto the fishbone. Now, these could go even further. If you said that maintenance was a problem, you could draw a separate fishbone only for maintenance. And you could then say, was the cause the maintenance team? Was the cause the materials the maintenance team was using? Was the method by which they're using the materials the cause? Or was it basically the equipment they put in was the wrong equipment, or is the equipment old and no longer performing at the standards it should be performing at? So using a Ishikawa fishbone allows you to clearly outline what the problems are by breaking them up by department and by different areas and different issues. The Ishikawa fishbone is a very, very simple philosophy. And the reason we use it is because it's a very simple diagrammatical way of solving problems. Has anybody here used the Ishikawa fishbone before? Can you wave your hands for me? Has anybody used Ishikawa? All right, let's talk to, okay, there's two people. Let's talk to Ramanath. Ramanath, where are you? Hello, Ramanath. Can you switch on your microphone, mate? Hello, Ramanath. Switch on your microphone. Switch on your microphone. Can you unmute your microphone, Ramanath? Thank you, Caleb. Switch on your microphone, Ramanath. Are you there? I can't hear you, Ramanath. I'm sorry. Anybody else want to talk to me about Ishikawa? Has anybody else here used Ishikawa fishbone? Peter, I know you've used it. Anybody else? Maravik, have you used Ishikawa before? Wave your hand, Maravik. Okay, let me talk to you, Maravik. How have you used Ishikawa before? Could you unmute your microphone? Hi, Maravik, how are you tonight?
Sorry, sir.
I can't hear you. Could you speak up?
I'm at work, sir. Sorry.
I can't hear you. Could you speak up? I can't hear you, ma'am. Your microphone is not working. I can't hear a word you're saying. I'm sorry. Can you switch on your microphone? I can't hear you, ma'am. Your microphone is not working. Is your microphone active? I think it's muted, ma'am. You need to fix your microphone. I can't hear you. I'll come back to you. Does anybody else want to talk to me? Anybody else? All right. Ishikawa's fishbone. Does anybody else here know Ishikawa? All right. Thank you. Maria, where are you, Maria? Maria, can you unmute your microphone? Tell me, how have you used Ishikawa before? Can you unmute your microphone, please? Hi, Maria, I can't hear you. Your microphone is muted. Are you there, Maria Rosemary? You want to unmute your microphone,
Yeah.
Maria? Hi, Maria, where are you
Yes.
from?
Hello, Mr. Wally. I'm from Philippines.
Great. Tell me, have you used the Ishikawa fishbone before?
Well, no, I've never used that. The fish bone. I've never used that one. But in Philippines, it's just that I observed that most, just like for example, the the contractor, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, they have a project like 20 millions. Yeah, most of the
Yes.
contractor, they corrupt the money. Just the problem is the material that they use for that project is they don't buy all the materials that they're using for that project, and the methods that sometimes they use is not really enough. So the problem is there is a fishbone that you cannot solve the problem. They cannot solve the problem. Why they cannot finish the project on time?
Well, you can, Maria, if you use the fishbone and break down where the money's going, and you break down how many dollars you've given them, and you ask them to account for every dollar they spend and put it on a fishbone, you would very quickly solve that problem. But the problem in the Philippines that you described is common in India and other countries, and it's better known as corruption. It's whereby they take the money and use it for something else. And throughout all academic research in countries that I've been a consultant with, and people have been prosecuted for stealing millions, including India and other countries, we usually put all of this on a fishbone. We start by using forensic accounting, by looking at every dollar they've been given, where it's gone, and identifying all the possible causes of where they've spent it on a fishbone, Maria. And when you put all this on paper on a fishbone, providing you have a team that is prepared to go into all the details and eccentric information that you can retrieve through the money you've dispersed under the contract, you will find that it will solve your problem. But I promise you, Maria, the fishbone has been used to close down corruption, not only in China, in the Philippines, and in India. But however, I must point out that to use the fishbone, you would have to have a team which spends every day for months going and looking at every possible element of money. They would have to examine the contract, every element of the contract, and they would need to actually look at every possible area using a fishbone. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you know, it's been a years, like an ages, that this corruption in Philippines cannot solve through the fishbone, because just like, for example, the project is the road. How can they solve? How can they know that the contractor used the materials exactly? Because we will not know.
Well, there is. Well, no, they can, because if they use the fishbone, they would be able to put measures in place to monitor every step of the contractor, how much materials he buys, where he used them, and when he used them. The reason that corruption goes away is because there's not enough watchdogs or not enough guidelines or monitoring systems in place. So there is not possible, Maria. What you're saying is it's because no one has put the measurements or the safeguards in place, but it is possible, Maria. And what that means is the people in the Philippines haven't sat down and outlined in a fishbone every step of the process. If I give a contractor $20 million to build a building, then every single dollar he spends should be monitored. If he's going to spend 10 million on materials, every time he buys materials, he has to document every material that is used. You know how many materials, how much concrete is it going to be used to build that building? And if he orders 200 tons and he doesn't complete the building with 200 tons that you already paid for, it's quite obvious that he's stealing concrete. But you don't wait till the end of the contract, because if you have all the safeguards built, because you've been through a detailed fishbone process, the contract would not be able to steal. And trust me, Maria, this has been done overseas, but the only reason they get away with it in the Philippines is because people in the right place, people in high authority, do not want to implement the fishbone, because they're worried about that if they do implement fishbone, the results that might come out might implicate them and they might find themselves into trouble. But the fishbone as a root cause solving problem analysis, ma'am, if you use it forensically and go deep down and think outside the box of black and white and start thinking of all the criminal things that these people can do and all the criminal ways by which they've stolen materials, I promise you, you'll be able to save that and you'll be able to stop corruption. And let me just give you one example. Look at China. Some of the richest men in China will spend the rest of their lives in jail. Thank you to forensic fishbone analysis that tracked down all the millions they've stolen. So let me tell you that forensic fishbone analysis, or fishbone analysis, as we call it, ishikawa, has been used by investigators and problem-solving accountants and business people all over the world. But what it means is digging deep. And a fishbone for corruption and a construction contract would not be as small as this. The fishbone might run 20 pages long. So Fishbone, Maria, I promise you can solve the problem. And if you'd like to give me an example or contact me after the session and give me an example, and if I can give you tools and show you which fishbone you can use, I'd be happy to do that. Would that be okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're
Yeah, I
welcome.
think, but I think in Philippines it's very hard to solve this problem, because in Philippines I think you don't use the fishbone forensic.
Well, maybe you should start using it. Maybe you're learning something tonight. Well, Maria, hold on. Maria, I'm an academic of 30 years. Hold on. I'm an academic of 30 years. I've been consultant to some of the biggest companies in the Philippines. No disrespect to you. I know some major corporations in the Philippines that now use ishikawa fishbone in management because of me. So it's not that in the Philippines you don't use it. It's in the Philippines some people don't know and don't want to use it. But let me tell you, you should be open-minded, Maria, so you can get promoted and move forward with your career. You should be asking, Wally, how do I start using it? All right? How do I start using it? Can you teach me how to use it? But let me assure you, Maria, ishikawa fishbone is used in the public hospital system. It's used in the pharmaceutical sector. It's used at Philippine Airlines to for them to recover out of the losses they were making. Ishikawa is very prominent in the Philippines. It's just that some industries don't use it. But let me tell you, sir, ma'am, Ishikawa was very successful when it was started, and it will remain to be very successful because companies all over the world use it. And as I said, Marie, you're welcome to contact me after this lesson. My co-host will share my email with you all, and I'm happy to hold a one-to-one session with you and teach you how to use the fishbone. There's no problem.
Okay.
Would that help you?
Thank you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
it helps.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right. Does
Wally.
anybody else want to ask any questions about the fishbone? Mustafa Jahar Yassin. Mr. Mustafa, you've been very quiet tonight, my dear student. Open your microphone and say hello to me, please. Hello, Mustafa.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Yes, how
Alaikum
are you, sir?
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear student. How are you tonight?
Wallah, it's okay, alhamdulillah.
So tell me, sir, have you used ishikawa before?
No, not at all.
Do you think that ishikawa would help you moving forward?
Yes, very important, yes.
Okay. All right, please start using it. And if you need any help, you have my email and WhatsApp number. Come up with a sample of how, I encourage you all, if you think ishikawa can help you, please draw a sample with neat handwriting and a ruler, or use your computer. You can use either Excel or Visio. If you go into Excel and look for diagrams and put in fishbone, Excel has a template of a fishbone. Or if you download Microsoft Visio, which comes with Microsoft Office, you can draw an ishikawa fishbone. Or if you go to Google and download, you put in ishikawa fishbone free software, there's a lot of free tools. What I suggest you do is come up with a problem, put the heading, and then draw up a fishbone and send it to me as homework. Tell me what the problem is and give me a sample of your fishbone, and I'm happy to correct it. Because if you don't learn how to use the fishbone, you will never be able to solve problems effectively. Does that help you, Muhammad? Okay, I hope you can hear me, mate. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. One moment, please. Okay, so we've looked at ishikawa, and as I said, I'm happy to share with you and give you all advice on how to use ishikawa. Okay, let's go on. So what are the challenges, ladies and gentlemen, when applying root cause analysis, whether you use root cause analysis on paper or whether you use a simple diagrammatical form that I've taught you, which will make it much easier. They include writing accurate and descriptive problem statements, getting enough supporting data, presence of multiple root causes, and not having enough perspective. And this comes back to the question one of our students just asked about the Philippines. The reason why ishikawa is not prevalent in most industries like constructions and the public sector in the Philippines is because no one is prepared to risk their job by writing an accurate descriptive problem statement because they're afraid if they whistleblow the problem, they'll lose their job. They're unable to get enough supporting data because people are afraid of losing their job.
It's true.
And also, the fact is that they're afraid to identify multiple root causes because no one wants to do it. They're afraid they might lose their job. And it's also because people in the Philippines, some of us are not having enough perspective of understanding how root cause analysis can rectify the problems, or they don't understand the tools such as the Ishikawa Fishbone. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, root cause analysis is only as effective as the effort given to find the answers. Of course, if in the Philippines no one wants to find the answers, the problem will never be resolved.
Yeah, because also the mayor is corrupt.
Well, but the only way you can identify corruption is by going through the process.
Sorry.
No, with all due respect, ma'am, if you want to ignore it by saying it's corrupt, that means you don't want to solve the problem. It's simple. All right, let's go through what I call a simple methodology for all of you to learn. And, you know, to the young lady, I would love to hear from you, and I would love to work with you and hopefully give you a model that you could use to outline corruption. If you have the confidence to do it and you really want to prove to your company that you've resolved the problem, I'm happy to show you the Fishbone to use, and I'm happy to guide you. Ladies and
Thank
gentlemen,
you.
I'm going to simplify everything I've taught to you tonight by giving you what we call the Simplex 8-step problem-solving method. Number 1 is identifying the problem. Number 2 is fact-finding. Number 3 is definition, defining all the elements of the problem. Number 4 is idea finding using the Fishbone. Number 5 is selecting the right areas of concern after you've gone through Fishbone analysis. Then planning on how you're going to fix these problems, looking at all the consequences, trying to convince the whole team and your management of the idea, and then implementing the action. The Simplex rules of 8 are very simple. Everybody who holds a management or supervisor job should be able to recite Simplex off by heart. Problem finding, fact finding, problem definition, idea finding, selecting and identifying the problem, planning the outcome or planning the remedy, convincing the team or selling them the idea, and taking action. But all of this can only happen if you use tools like the Ishikawa Fishbone. Because without the Ishikawa Fishbone, what you're going to find hard is you're going to find, sorry, just give me a minute. If you don't use Ishikawa Fishbone, you're going to find it very hard to answer these areas. In order to answer these areas, you need the Fishbone. In order to answer this, you might also need the Fishbone. And here, you will also need the Fishbone. And then once you've identified the area, you might need to do the Fishbone again to make sure that that area will work. Okay, let's look at the Simplex creative problem solving idea. Please write these down because I will not be sharing PowerPoint with anyone. BizTalk is part of you participating and learning and writing it down. BizTalk is a conversation or a discussion. I don't share PowerPoint for BizTalk. I only share templates and written material. Please, if you attend BizTalk, you should have pen and paper ready. You should use your mobile phone to take pictures if you don't want to write it down. Step 1 of the Simplex creative problem solving process is problem finding. Step 2 is fact finding. Step 3 is problem definition. Step 4 is idea finding. Step 5 is evaluation and selection of the right steps, taking into account what the possible outcomes and ramifications should be. Having an action plan drawn before you start. Gaining acceptance as a result of presenting an action plan. And number 8, putting it into action. And of course, you would go back and measure the outcome at a later date. So let me talk about this. Anybody have any questions about Simplex? There are 8 simple steps. Does anybody here not understand what the 8 steps of Simplex are? Does anybody have any questions about Simplex? I hope that Simplex will give you a clear, easy way to look at problems. If you look at critical thinking, active listening, active questioning, using open-ended questions more than closed-ended questions, looking at critical thinking as well as analytical thinking, and apply those rules together, then using the fishbone should be easy. It's going to make it clearer for you. Every time I go in as a consultant to big companies, I start by drawing a great big fishbone on the wall. I ask that we put up lots of A3 sheets of paper, or we buy white paper that they use for newspaper printing, and we open the roll across the wall. And we start drawing the fishbone from the very beginning. We list all the possible people involved, all the causes, all the methods. And we probably have 200 causes, probable causes, and 200 probable method errors. We also look at all the people on the fishbone. The fishbone could be, you know, it could include 50 or 60 bones along the main skeleton of the fish. But that doesn't matter. The idea of the fishbone is to expose all the possible causes and all the possible elements. Does everybody understand what I mean by the need for a fishbone? Can you wave your hands? Wave your hands, everyone. Irene, wave your hand. Irene M. Do you understand what we're talking about, Irene? Good, excellent, thank you. Do you understand, Kongjo, what we're talking about? Do you understand Ho Ti? Yes, good, excellent. All right, good, excellent, excellent. Excellent, thank you. All right. Okay, just one moment, please. Okay, so as I said, here, here, and here, even here, the first 4, you would definitely need a tool like the Ishikawa fishbone. All right, let's go on. Let's put this into simple language. Okay, so problem finding, identifying the problem that is causing the trouble. So let's start with 1, problem finding, identify the problem. Fact finding, measure and define the issue, frequency, conditions, etc. Number 1 is problem finding and identifying the problem that it's causing. Number 2 is fact finding by measuring and defining the issue, frequency, and conditions. Number 3 is defining the problem. Define the root cause perfectly. What is causing the problem? Corruption? Fine. Let's use the Ishikawa fishbone to identify the cause of the corruption and who's involved. Idea finding. Look for different potential solutions. Look at it objectively and subjectively. Look at all the possible solutions and look at what the ramifications of each solution are. It's better that you examine the ramifications beforehand rather than implement and then find out that they generate more problems. Planning. Plan and define how the final idea will be implemented. Once you've planned it, then go back and put it on a fishbone to make sure that everything works. Next, sell the idea to management so they accept it. Explain the idea to those who will need help. Show them how you reach the problem on the Fishbone. Go through the Fishbone with them. Get their buy-in. See if they have anything else to add to the Fishbone. Once you've got that and you're prepared with that, you need to then come up with a project plan and implement the solution. And also you need to have metrics to measure whether it's succeeded or not. Now, how do you measure whether it's succeeded? You will probably come back at 3 months and repeat the process again based on the figures that you get. If the figures that you get show that the result hasn't been good enough or as strong as you expected, you need to repeat the process. All right, I'm going to show you a video now. I want you all to listen carefully, and I want you all to answer question. Does everybody know Starbucks? Does everybody here know Starbucks? Wave your hands. Come on, Irene, you've drunk Starbucks. Good on you, Irene. Everybody wave your hands, Starbucks. Good. Listen to this video, because at the end of this is going to be your homework. And if you don't submit the homework, that means you don't really appreciate learning. All right. Okay, one moment, please. Okay, let's share screen. One moment, please. I want everybody to listen carefully, and then we'll talk.
Starbucks.
Hold on. Sorry, guys. 1 minute, please. 1 minute. Just 1 minute, please. Something went wrong. Hold on. Share screen. Just 1 moment, please. Let me fix the problem. 1 moment. Okay. I'm going to share screen with you again. 1 moment, please.
Starbucks is the largest and most popular coffee chain across the world, but the company isn't always successful internationally. In fact, they have just 23 locations in Australia compared to 15,000 in the United States. One reason Starbucks failed in Australia was that they didn't adapt to the local Australian coffee culture. Starbucks was selling coffee that many Australians didn't want at a higher price than many local Australian cafes. Another reason Starbucks failed was that they grew too fast. Australian customers needed time to become used to the Starbucks brand, which entered Australia in the year 2000. These factors combined meant that Starbucks didn't get enough customers and was spending a ton of money, leading to $105 million in losses by 2007. These losses made Starbucks close over 70% of their Australian locations, and that's why Starbucks failed in Australia.
Okay, so let's now stop the share and let me ask you, what do you think the causes of Starbucks failure is? Who can give me one? Who would like to put their hand up and answer one? Okay, let's talk to Maria again. Maria, can you unmute your microphone? What was the first cause of Starbucks failure, Maria? Just give me a minute, Maria. 1 moment, please, Maria. Yeah, Maria, tell me, what's the cause of Starbucks failure? Are you there, Maria? Okay, Maria, sorry, I've lost you. Let me try to find you again. Where's Maria gone? Okay, Maria, I found you. Can you unmute your microphone, please?
Yeah. Hello again, Mr. Wani.
Yeah, what's the cause of Starbucks failure?
I think the cause of the Starbucks failure is because nowadays there are a lot of a shop, like a coffee shop that do the same with the Starbucks, but lower the price with what the Starbucks are selling. I think that's the reason why the Starbucks are failed with their business now.
Okay, thank you. But the reason Starbucks failed is because they didn't understand what their customer wanted. They didn't understand what type of coffee they wanted. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
And expensive. I think it's expensive than the other coffee shop that they're selling, but the same, not the same product, but the same, in Starbucks, they're selling a cappuccino, right? But I can buy also a cappuccino in another shop, but not expensive as a Starbucks.
Thank you. Great. Excellent. Thank you very much, Maria. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you guys another video, and I want you to watch this video carefully, and then I'm going to talk to you again. One moment, please. One moment, please.
Starbucks has coffee shops all over the world. There are more than 28,000 locations in 76 markets, from Shanghai to Guantanamo Bay. And in China, a new Starbucks location opens up every 15 hours. But there is one continent that seems uninterested in the hype over the Seattle-based coffee chain. And that continent is Australia. It's proven to be one of the toughest markets in the world to break into. So tough, in fact, that Starbucks closed more than 2/3 of its stores on the continent back in 2008. So what went so wrong with Starbucks in Australia? To answer that, let's go back to July of 2000, when Starbucks opened its first Australian shop in Sydney. From there, it expanded fast. By 2008, Starbucks had 87 stores across the continent.
I think one of the problems for Starbucks, and it's true for a lot of businesses that have been successful in one country, is that they thought that their business model could just roll out to a different environment and there was no need for them to adjust.
But that was the problem. It tried to grow the empire too fast. Starbucks rapidly opened up multiple locations instead of slowly integrating them into the Australian market.
When they launched too rapidly and didn't give the Australian consumer an opportunity to really develop an appetite for the Starbucks brand. They also moved into regional areas, into outer suburbs of major cities. And so for the Australian consumer, it was almost like it was too available for them. And so there wasn't this point of difference, this want, this need for Starbucks, and it wasn't an organic growth, which is what we very much saw in the US.
In its first 7 years in Australia, Starbucks accumulated $105 million in losses. By 2007, Starbucks Australia was hanging on by a thread, taking big loans from the US totaling up to $54 million. And in 2008, Starbucks announced it was shutting down 61 stores. But of course, 2008 was a difficult time for businesses due to the financial crisis. Along with the Australia closures, Starbucks also closed 600 underperforming American stores. But even still, such a retreat in Australia was embarrassing for the brand.
When you're shutting down 75 stores, for the Australian consumer, when they did leave the market, or at least a large number of their stores were shut down, they didn't really care.
It's partly because Australians are spoiled for choice when it comes to coffee. Australia's coffee market is one of the biggest in the world. The industry is expected to hit more than $6 billion in total revenue in 2018. They've been immersed in nuances of cafe culture since the mid-1900s, when Italian and Greek immigrants began traveling to the country. The immigrants introduced Australians to espresso. By the 1980s, Australians were fully engulfed in cafe culture. They've also grown accustomed to specialty menu items, like a flat white or an Australian macchiato.
So cafes in Australia were born out of like the Italian culture of, meeting a friend and knowing your local barista, and it being kind of like a local meeting place where everyone knew each other, and that coffee was just a part of that. And then Starbucks came in with what is more of an American style like coffee culture, which is essentially just like coffee is a product, coffee is a commodity, coffee is like like perk me up in the morning. It's caffeination.
Starbucks had a basic menu and offered more sugary drinks, which most Australians didn't like.
In Australia, where local tastes are different, so we don't really want a coffee that's hundreds of ounces with lots of sugar in it. We want something a bit more sophisticated.
Plus, Starbucks charged more than local cafes. So Australians instead opted to pay less for coffee they liked from a local barista they trusted.
And so when you come in with this big hey, we're going to open all these cafes and they're all going to be to-go focused, it just was the complete wrong market for what the Australian was used to.
But there's one American coffee company that's thriving in Australia. Founded in Chicago and now based in Australia, Gloria Jean's got the traction in Australia that Starbucks couldn't. Gloria Jean's has more than 400 Australian locations and serves more than 35 million consumers in Australia each year. So what is Gloria Jean's doing in Australia that Starbucks isn't? Well, the company attributes its success to two Australians who franchised the business in their home country. Shops started to show up in Australia in 1996. Fast forward to today, the company has a presence in every Australian state. The reason? Its menu. The chain offers a wide variety of espresso drinks and specialty coffee. Failing to adapt its menu to Australians' coffee culture proved to be a mistake for Starbucks. And the company faces another challenge later this year: Italy. Starbucks is opening its first store in Milan in late 2018. Home of the espresso, Italy is rich in cafe culture. But according to Starbucks, it's not going to make the same mistakes that it did in Australia. The company said that it would develop in Italy with humility and respect for its coffee culture. It announced it would be opening a roastery, which is not your average cafe. It gives customers a chance to see coffee beans roasted and processed before their eyes. So there's a chance that it won't struggle like it did in Australia. But Starbucks isn't admitting defeat in Australia either. Starbucks is staging a comeback on the continent. In 2014, Starbucks locations in Australia were purchased by the Mount Waverley-based Withers Group. Starbucks told CNBC that since its sale to the Withers Group, the company learned a lot. So this time, it's taken a different approach to putting Starbucks on the continent.
So if you just think about it, Australia's a big tourism destination. There's a lot of US and Chinese tourists. Starbucks have been very successful in China, and it makes a lot of sense for them to build out because there are people looking for something that's familiar to them.
Now with 39 locations in Brisbane, Melbourne, the Gold Coast, and Sydney areas, this time it's not looking to appeal to Australians. But instead, the coffee giant hopes to be a familiar face for tourists visiting popular vacation destinations in Australia.
Australia's always been a high volume tourist market. The same thing in terms of international students at our universities, potential opportunities for them. And we're starting to see Starbucks enter into some large shopping malls here in Australia as well.
Australia welcomed 9 million tourists from 2017 to 2018, and those international visitors spent more than $30 billion in 2017 alone. So tourists could possibly be the key to keeping the company afloat and preventing another downfall.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So basically that video told you about all the mistakes that Starbucks made. Do you think that Starbucks could have identified all those mistakes had they not spent hours and days looking at all the elements of the Australian market? They did. I'm an Australian, and I can tell you that when I lived in Australia, I didn't go to Starbucks for coffee because there's 200 Italian Greek coffee shops that make an espresso for only $1.20. If I went to Starbucks, the espresso was $4. And the espresso that the Italian or Greek coffee shop made was purer than Starbucks because the Greek coffee shop man roasted the beans fresh every morning. Starbucks brought in roasted beans in foil bags and basically put them in the grinder. So the Australian culture, they have a very high set of standards about the coffee they drink. For example, in Australia, if I go into a coffee place, I want to see them roast the beans fresh, put them in the grinder and make my coffee. Starbucks wasn't able to do that. But when it went to Italy, they didn't build a Starbucks restaurant. They built a Starbucks roastery. So when you go into Starbucks in Italy, the only branch they have, you can see the big coffee roasting machines and the beans coming out, and those beans are being used for your coffee. So it was a different understanding of the market that Starbucks failed. Starbucks had to use the Ishikawa Fishbone, and a lot of money lost, $56 million, for them to identify the problems they were facing. Does everybody understand what I mean by the problems and identifying the problems? Starbucks didn't just say our prices are too high. They identified deeper problems. The menu wasn't suited. People wanted a different taste of coffee. People wanted a different atmosphere. People wanted a cheaper cup of coffee. People wanted the beans to taste more like freshly roasted Italian or Greek coffee. You all know that the Greeks drink black coffee, espresso, which is much thicker than we drink it in Asia or Italians. Italian espresso is very watered down. Greek espresso is very thick. It looks like oil and it's very thick, black and strong. So Australians are passionate about either Greek coffee or Italian coffee because they're two different textures. But unfortunately, Starbucks weren't able to meet that. And Starbucks had to go through a fishbone process to identify this. But unfortunately, by the time they reached the answers, they had already lost over $56 million on the Australian market. And believe me, 56 million is not a small amount of money. We're talking 56 million US dollars. Does everybody understand what I mean by the problems that Starbucks faced? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So what were the lessons learned? What were the lessons learned from Starbucks in Australia? The business need to know, you need to know your markets and your consumerism behavior. You need to know the price positioning you're in, and you need to serve your customer the way your customer wants to be served. But unfortunately, Starbucks did not get their homework done right, and it cost them $56 million before they went through the Ishikawa and Ishikawa Fishbone process and the process of digging down to the root cause. So as far as they were concerned, they knew that going into Australia, they identified that there were symptoms which are leading them to lose money. But it took them numerous months and months of diagnosing and looking at different elements, price, recipe, taste, ambience. They had to dig down with many Ishikawa fish bones to get to the root cause. At the end of the root cause, they were able to establish that the problem for them was 3 simple points: knowing the market and consumer behavior, positioning their price correctly, and serving the customer the way the customer wants to be served. Okay? And what happened was, as a result of that, by using the fishbone and by using root cause analysis, they were able to analyze the design, the manufacture, assembly of the systems or the components they use, like the way they brewed their coffee, the way they roasted their coffee, the type of beans they used. They were able to come back with a systematic, structured approach that allowed them to serve the customer and anticipate the way the customer wants to drink their coffee. They started looking at what can go wrong and found ways to deal with it. Instead of importing Ethiopian beans, they started importing more Italian and Greek flavored coffee beans for the Australian market. All of these methods, whether it's root cause analysis by taking the symptom and identifying the root cause, are useful because at the end of the day, when the effect occurs so as to narrow down specific causes or failed components, you are able to then fix them. If they didn't go back and use the Ishikawa fishbone and ask themselves exactly what is happening at each level of the process by going in reverse, starting from, not from the customer, but starting from the beginning, where the beans came from, what beans they used, how they processed them, how they served them, what was the price they're selling them at, they would never have been able to work out what their market loss was. They would never have been able to stop the $56 million loss. Does everybody understand why it's so important to use root cause analysis when you're going through problem solving? Does everybody understand that? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to take some questions. I would like to share more about root cause analysis and problem solving, but unfortunately, I'm trying to give you a simple understanding of the process, because if I was to conduct a full lecture, we're looking at probably 6 or 8 hours to go through into technical processes and get you to practice and look at very complicated case studies, and we don't have that. So what I've done is I've shown you 2 simple case studies, and the idea of this tonight is to get you to think about problem solving. If you start thinking about Starbucks and Ninja, at least open up your brains and get you to start thinking of how to use problem solving in your business or in solving your personal problems of not being able to find a job or being unemployed. So I hope that what I've given you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, one moment, please. So what I hope I've given you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is I hope I've given you the tools to start thinking about how to become effective problem solvers. Thank you very much, Caleb, Nicole. I very much appreciate your comments. Thank you. You're a small business and you're forced now to suffer, Nicole. I know that, Nicole. And this is why I'm telling you, Nicole, I want you to think about your problems, Nicole. Try to come up with an ishikawa fishbone. Identify, put a heading on each fishbone about the problem you assume define problem. Draw a fishbone. Identify all the bones in the fish, as many as you want, Nicole. Send it to me. Give me a few days to read it, Nicole. I'll reply to you, then I'll call you and discuss it with you. That's the best I can do to help you, Nicole. You're one of my students. You're one of our students, and I'm here to help you. But for me to help you, you guys have to put in the effort, all right? My co-host, Mr. Amala, could you share my eih.wally1 email address with all the students here tonight? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to send me homework on this, please, in the subject line, put effective problem solving homework, today's date, 25 April 2022. And in the email, put your full name and the class or the subject you're studying with us at Kingston. If you're doing diploma, write diploma. If you're doing postgraduate diploma, write postgraduate diploma student. Define the problem you're looking at, and then give me an example or a drawing of your ishikawa fishbone. Make sure you include your WhatsApp number so I can give you feedback. If you would like to send me the homework, please make sure you send it to me within 7 days. And please allow me 7 days to reply to you. Does anybody want to ask me any questions before we go? Okay, I'm here to take questions. Let's start with Ramanath. Ramanath, can you unmute your microphone? Hello, Ramanath.
Good evening,
Where
sir.
are you from, sir?
I am from Bhutan, sir.
Right. Tell me, what are your questions tonight, sir?
Yeah, actually, I didn't understand about the fishbone, sir. Once talk about.
I can't hear you, Ramanath. You need to speak up.
I didn't actually mean. I didn't understand about fishbone.
You don't understand fishbone?
Yeah, sir.
Okay.
Because of I joined late, sir.
Okay, what you need to do, Ramanath, is you need to actually message me or email me, and I'll send you an example of the fishbone again, Ramanath. But again, let me just go back to the fishbone quickly. I'll do it now, actually. Just bear with me.
Just a hint only, sir. Please give me just a hint only, sir.
Just one moment, please. I'll go back to it. Okay, let me go back to Ishikawa's fishbone, please. So basically, Ishikawa's fishbone is a diagram used to show the casual factors that go into the final decision. It helps you draw down or drill down to the root cause of the problem. And it looks like a fish because it helps you draw along the fishbone all the problems. The problem here that they're trying to uncover is hydrogen-induced cracking in low-temperature pressure vessels. So what they do, Ramanath, is they draw a long line down the center, a horizontal line, and then they start drawing vertical lines. And for each vertical line, they identify all the factors that could be causing the problem. The materials, the methods, the machines and the equipment, the people, the environment, and the measurement. So what you need to do is that Fishbone allows you to draw a long line and put in lines, as many bones off the main horizontal line or the fishbone down the center. You can put as many elements as possible. And under each element, you can identify all the causes or possible causes. So what this fishbone helps you do, Ramanath, is put a very clear drawing of all the problems and causes that you could be facing. You understand that, Ramanath?
Yes.
Are you there, Ramanath?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Does that help you?
Yes, sir.
All right. So do you think you can use Fishbone now? Do you know what I mean by the Fishbone?
Yeah, this is actually a corruption, no, sir.
So what you
This is
can do,
actually
Ramanath,
instant
if you can
corruption.
write down the word Ishikawa Fishbone now, you can go to Google tonight, look over the Fishbone, and I expect you to come up with an example of a problem and a fishbone and send it to me as homework, and I'll correct it for you. All right?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you
I got
understand
it
that,
done.
Ramanath?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I look forward to receiving your homework, Ramanath. Okay, does
Okay, sir.
anybody have any other questions about anything I've explained? Tang Sok, would you like to talk to me, Tang Sok? Hello, Tang Sok. Can you unmute your microphone? Yes, Roxanne, fishbones are very commonly used in big supermarket chains to identify problems. Thank you for sharing that, Roxanne. Maybe, Roxanne, as your homework, you can draw a fishbone and send me that so I can correct it for you, ma'am. Choose a problem that you want to resolve. Or you could use your supermarket problems as a sample and use that. Anybody else would like to ask me a question? John Maluza, would you like to talk to me? Can you unmute your microphone? John Maluza, would you like to unmute your microphone, John? Hello, John.
Yes,
how are you tonight, John?
Yes. Yes,
John,
good
have
afternoon.
you found tonight's session helpful, John?
Yes, it has helped me a lot because I've learned things that we normally see at times, because corruption, like in our areas where we are, the ishikawa fish pan is truly there, because a lot of things are happening and there are no guidelines or maybe laws to implement to say these things should be phased out. I don't know how helpful we can be helped in such areas.
Well, John, you know, the only way you're going to get to the bottom of those areas is to try to identify one area of corruption and use the Ishikawa fishbone to try to dig deep and find all the possible causes. Look for all the ways in which money is being stolen and spent. Look at closing all those doors. If you want to try a simple example of a fishbone and send it to me, I'd be happy to guide you and work with you to do that. I have no problem. Okay?
Okay.
You're
Okay,
welcome,
sir.
John. It's my pleasure, sir. Anybody else would like
Thank
to
you,
ask
sir.
any questions? You're welcome, sir. Jacob Yendal, would you like to talk to me, Jacob Yendal? Are you there, Jacob? Hi, Jacob. How can I help you? I can't hear you, Jacob. There's something wrong with your microphone. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go to someone else. Let's talk to Joy. Joy Valvarez. Can you unmute your microphone, Joy? Hi, Joy. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Joy, do you understand what I just explained?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me, Joy?
That's something. No question. Actually, I do understand what are you talking about.
Thank you, Joy.
Yes, about the
Please.
fishbone diagram.
Okay. maybe you try doing one diagram and send it to me as an example.
Yes,
And if there's any,
sure,
I will
sure.
guide you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
But do you think tonight's lesson has helped you, Joy?
Yes,
You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you so
it's
much.
very beneficial for us, for me.
I have a question.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I can't hear you. Is this Jacob? You want to talk to me, Jacob?
Yes,
Can you
this
fix
is
your microphone?
Yeah, I think somebody.
this is Jacob.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You need to switch on your microphone, so I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The
Go ahead, Jacob. Are you there? Sorry, I can't hear you, sir. You need to get a working microphone. I'm sorry.
microphone is on.
Yeah. Go
No.
ahead. Are you there? Are you there, Jacob?
0 to 100%. How can
Okay, let's talk to someone else. I can't hear Jacob. Narilla, can I help you, Narilla? Can you unmute your microphone? Hello, Narilla.
Hello, sir.
Hi, you have any questions about tonight's session?
Yeah, I have understood, but I didn't have any problems with my so my future. I think I'm planning to start my business. In education. Yeah, I just want to start my online course teaching. So I didn't have any problems, and I
Well, maybe you can
didn't have
start
any
looking.
business before, and I had how can I draw?
Well,
So
Narilla, it might be a learning
how can I
exercise.
analyze the
It might be a learning exercise for you. It might be a learning exercise for you to go and do research about all the problems that online schools have today and put them on an ishikawa fishbone and try to solve those problems so that when you start, you don't lose money. Because let me tell you, online education is a very complex business. We're in it and we have thousands, tens of thousands of students. So let me tell you, Narilla, there's a lot of problems in online education. And one of the things you should do, Narilla, is go and talk to other people in online education and start looking at what are the problems you could face and put those on a fishbone and let me try to help you unsolve those before you lose money in your business. Does that help you, Narilla?
Yes.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
sir.
Thank you for joining me tonight, ma'am. It's my pleasure. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the time is approaching 10 o'clock. I can take 2 or 3 more questions. Can anybody who wants to talk to me really show their hand and I will try to talk. Rochelle Disoy Ogong, would you like to talk to me? Hello, Rochelle. How can I help you tonight?
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Have you learned anything tonight, Rochelle?
I learned, but I want to ask more question about the fishbone
Go ahead.
ishikawa diagram. In drawing drawing the bones in the diagram, so it's asking there the asking for the root cause of the problem. So when putting the root cause of the problem, is it should be answered the 5 W's, which means why, who, what, when.
Absolutely.
Yes, this is like the guide for the
Yes, it
questions
is.
and the
Absolutely.
fish one.
Yes, Rochelle, you need
Okay.
to answer all the whys. Why, what,
Okay.
where, how, the whole lot. When? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to be to clarify
You're
it so that.
welcome. That's a very good question. You're on the ball. I look forward to seeing your homework. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, does anybody else want to talk to me? Noor Salah, Claudia, would you like to talk to me? Unmute your microphone, please. Hello, Noor Salah. How can I help you tonight?
Oh,
Are
sorry.
you there?
Yes, good
Hi.
evening, sir. Hello.
Hi, what's your question tonight, Noor Salah?
Okay, so this about the homework. So can this about just the problem to make sense. So can
What you need to do, Norsella, is identify a problem in a business or your job. I write down what the problem is and then try to put the problem on an ishikawa fishbone and send it to me to correct. All right?
Alright, I understand. So, so if I make a problem, if I share about my job problem, is it also can put in the Fishbone ishikawa structure, sir?
Yeah, you share the problem. You write the statement, then you draw the fishbone and send it to me, and then I'll give you some feedback on it. Yes.
Okay, noted.
Good on you. I look forward to seeing your homework soon. Thank you, Norcella. Thank you for joining me tonight, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Yes, absolutely. Irene, Ruellen, you can do that. Absolutely, ma'am. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I can take 2 or 3 more. Nazmin or Azaba, would you like to unmute your microphone? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. Okay. Joy, would you like to talk to me again, Joy? Would you like to unmute your microphone? I'm coming, Nelson, just give me a minute. Do you want to talk to me, Joy? Would you like to unmute your microphone? Yes.
Hello, hello, sir.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
So far, no. I do understand what is the fishbone diagram.
All right, great. So if you have any questions, please email me or WhatsApp me, Joy. I hope you've learned something tonight. Have you found tonight's lesson helpful?
Yes, it's very beneficial, sir. It's very
Thank
helpful
you. You're welcome, Joy. I
for
look
me
forward
and
to
for our
seeing you at
company.
BizTalk 33 in a few weeks' time. Thank you. Sorry, BizTalk 34 in a week's time. Thank you so much, Joy.
Thank you.
Okay, let me take another one. Where is he? He's gone. Okay, all right. Okay, Michelle Offeroy. Michelle Offeroy. Hi, Michelle, can I help you? Hey there, Michael. Sorry,
Hello,
Michael
can you hear me?
Offeroy. Do you have any questions for me, Michael?
Yeah, I wanted to know if you've been a consultant in any of the African companies and you have used the ishikawa fishbone.
Companies
to work
all
in
over the
any of the
world
African
use
countries.
it, Michael. Companies all over the world use it. Whether it's South African Airlines, every company in the world use it. And it's time you started using it.
Because I'm quite surprised that there's a lot of corruption in Africa. There's a lot of corruption in Africa.
Yes.
If they are really using it, and I don't see the reason why they still use the star fishbone and there's still their corruption going on in Africa.
Yeah, Michael, there's problems in Africa, but the problems in Africa are there because no one in Africa is brave enough to identify the problems and speak about them or try to solve them because they're afraid of the retribution. One part of the problem-solving process is somebody has to be brave enough to identify the problem and start actively listening, actively asking questions to get to the root cause. And the fishbone can help you. If you would like to drop me an email and give me some ideas about what you're trying to dissolve, I'm happy to help you work through a sample fishbone. Would that help you, Michael?
All right.
You're welcome,
I'll
Michael.
do
Thank
that.
you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I can take 2 more people. Let's go on. Can I talk to Nelson Caesar Amaral? Hello, Nelson. How can I help you tonight?
Okay.
Hi, Nelson. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't have some question, but I almost get to you because this lesson and this program is really clear because I can understood about the types of thinking, analytical, fast, creative, and especially for active listening and active questioning.
Okay, great.
For me, it's good for me. But I would like to get some PowerPoint from you, but it is
Okay,
just
Nelson, unfortunately, Nelson, BizTalk doesn't give away PowerPoints. It's a free motivation session. If you want to email me and there's a certain PowerPoint you want, I'm happy to send you a copy of it. But as a rule, I don't share BizTalk PowerPoints because I expect BizTalk students to be adult enough to write it down. And if you really want, if it's really a PowerPoint that you want, you can drop me an email and I'd be happy to PDF it and send it to you. I have no problem. All right.
Okay, Mr.
But also, let me just make it easier for all of you. If you go to our Apex channel on YouTube tomorrow, called the Apex Stories, By tomorrow night, there'll be a video of this session posted on YouTube under the Apex stories, and you can actually replay the lesson and learn from that. So you don't really need my PowerPoint. If you go to YouTube channel, my co-host, could you post details of the YouTube channel in the chat box now, please? Mr. Amala, could you post the YouTube channel in the chat box, please?
Okay.
Just bear with me for a moment. Everybody, my co-host is going to give you details of our YouTube channel. Mr. Amala, could you post the YouTube channel details in the chat box, please?
Okay, Mr. I have emailed you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and please go to the YouTube channel. My colleague will put the details there. Oops, there it is. My colleague has put the details there. If you go to Facebook, let's go back up. Sorry, visit our company Instagram. Okay, you see there that he's put there the YouTube link for the Apex stories. If you click on the YouTube link, you'll see a video of all my BizTalks, and the video should be posted by tomorrow evening. You can play the video of BizTalk 33 at any time and listen to my lesson again. Does that help you, Nelson?
Okay. It is
Okay,
clear.
and if you have any other questions, Nelson, you're welcome to message me or email me. I'd be happy to help you, my dear friend. But please try to do the homework and send me a sample and I'll correct it for you. All right, Nelson?
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you, please feel free to visit our YouTube channel, like us, follow us, and subscribe to us. This YouTube lesson, this YouTube BizTalk 33 will be published on our YouTube channel by close of business tomorrow. You can click on BizTalk 33 and you can listen to this lecture as many times as you like on YouTube. If you want any help other than that, before you do your homework, you can email me and I would be happy to send you particular slides that you're missing. But I would suggest it's easier to go and watch the video first. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure having you all here tonight. I hope that BizTalk 33 about effective problem solving has been helpful. If you can think of a subject that you would like BizTalk to cover, please drop me an email of the subject and I'll put it before our team of entrepreneurs and academics and we'll try our best to deliver it for you as soon as possible. I hope you've learned from tonight's session. Remember, this is only a 2-hour session, so we try to give you the ideas needed for effective problem solving in 2 hours. Effective problem solving is a very, very complex area, and usually when we teach this diploma or postgraduate diploma, it's about 8 hours of lesson. So please go through it, and I hope I've given you enough ideas and I've stimulated you to start using problem solving through creative thinking. Okay, I really hope that I've opened your minds to a new way of thinking. Remember, creative thinking is a core element of problem solving. Active listening, active questioning, and the fishbone to get to your root cause from symptoms to problem to the root cause is the core of solving any problem. Many companies fail because they try to solve a problem without identifying the root cause, and that's where their failure is. So ladies and gentlemen, again, I ask you to please use some of the skills I've taught you tonight, and I hope you put them to use. Again, you can send your homework to me within 7 days. Mr. Amala, could you share my email address, please? Wally1@gmail.com. Mr. Amala, could you type that in the chat box? Mr. Amala, could you type my email address, Wally1@gmail.com in the chat box? Okay, is there anybody else? For those of you who are trying to talk to me and your microphone doesn't work, can I recommend that during the week, before my next session on Saturday, could you go out and buy a nice working microphone? You can buy them at most shops now for $4 or $5. Get a microphone that works, test it, because a lot of you have faulty microphones that don't work, and I want to talk to all of you, but I can't talk to you if your microphone doesn't work. For the love of God, you're attending a session that you would usually have to pay $1,000 to attend. The least you could do is go and buy a microphone or an earpiece that works. It's to help you learn. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everyone. From me and from my co-host here down under in Singapore, I bid you all a very good night. God bless you all. I love you all. I hope to see you in the next class and the next BizTalk. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Good night, everybody. Good night, Mr. Amala. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining BizTalk 33. It's been my pleasure. Good night.